The museum uses a proprietary application called PastPerfect to keep track of its collections. On the computer in the library archives room, the quick link to open PastPerfect is here among the shelf icons, shown by the black arrow. This is the screen you see when PastPerfect is opened. The objects category includes everything from our 83-foot-long Pullman car to conductor uniform buttons. This is the record for a specific object, in this case a hat. The key number for cataloging is the object ID, indicated by the orange arrow. Object numbers for 3D objects are preceded by the letter O, not 0. Items produced by or for Union Pacific are in the 3000 series. Pacific Coast Railway is 1000 series, while Southern Pacific is 2000. This item came in without a donation form, so it has no accession number, the yellow arrow. It was never cataloged under the system used before PastPerfect, so it has no old number, gray arrow. Important data items are the home location, shown by the blue arrow, and the description at the green arrow. We err on the side of more information in the description because that field can be searched for keywords. If we know how and when an item was obtained, and about its ownership and use before it came to the museum, that information is entered in the provenance box. That information can also be entered in the lines at the lower left part of this view. In the photos category, we have our negatives, original prints, and copies. Photo object IDs begin with P for individual photos and PA for photo albums. It can be confusing because all 3D objects, photos, and archival documents and plans have an object ID number, even though PastPerfect does not put them in the objects category. Breaking down the object ID number, we have 2000 series for Southern Pacific, 500 for the category of civil and mechanical engineering aspects, and 30 for right-of-way and track material. The ones place is reserved for finer distinctions within the tens. The number after the decimal point reflects the order in which items in this specific category were cataloged. This was the first, so it received number 1. The archives category, as used here, is basically documents and two-dimensional things other than photos. Everything from timetables to dining car menus, to tickets, to plans for stations and locomotives. This is a typical record in the archives catalog. For the object ID number, the 8000 series covers items not produced by railroads. In this case, magazine or newspaper articles that were collected by an individual who then donated the album to the museum. Note how the scope and content abstract, the orange arrow, includes a railroad name, a date, and a place. These will help a researcher locate material relevant to certain topics, even if the location or even if the collection item has no title or widely recognized source. This is the Context tab of an archives catalog record, the orange box. Note how the Scope and Content Abstract box repeats from the previous slide, which was displayed with the Identity Statement tab, the green arrow. Important information in this tab includes the name of the creator and the archival history, where we identify the source and date of donations. This is actually what the whole screen looks like when any PastPerfect page is open. Note that there are two places with a function labeled Edit. The one highlighted by the green arrow enables changes to the specific record that's displayed. Right-clicking with the mouse does not open an editing dialog box. You must put the cursor in the appropriate box or line and type. To cut or paste, you need to use the Edit function at the orange arrow. That's the one that opens a box for choosing the specific function. To add a new record, use the Add function at the green arrow. The default opens a new record page with the descriptive information filled in from the last record that was opened. A dialog box lets you open an entirely blank record page. The object ID will always be blank for a new record. PastPerfect will not let you use an existing object ID number for a new record. Note that for all items, PastPerfect looks at the exact character string. Photo P2500.1 is different from photo album PA2500.1, which is different from 3D object O2500.1 or document 2500.1. Also note that each archives catalog, black arrow record, which we're in now, as opposed to the objects or photos catalogs, has additional pages, starting with context, the tab above the blue arrow. Editing some of the fields within a tab does not automatically edit all fields in other tabs. That is a problem if you create a new record using the autofill option that brings in information from the previous record that was opened. But using the previous record data can be a real time saver if you are creating several new record pages for similar items. The find function at the black arrow is easier to use than the query function, which has the neighboring button to the right. Probably the best way to find items covering a specific feature is to use the field search. Moving the cursor over the down marker under Search This Field, the orange arrow, opens a long list of fields. Generally, the most productive field is Scope and Content Abstract. I couldn't force the drop-down list to remain open while the screen capture tool was in use, so you'll have to take my word for it that there's a very long list in alphabetical order, including a repetition of Custom field, which we've never used. If you are not using the Begins With text line at the green arrow, you should delete any characters there to avoid having that limit your search results. Past Perfect automatically displays the last entry on that line. Switching to the Photos catalog, which has the same basic choices for viewing, adding, and editing an individual record, let's look at the Browse function, the red arrow. Browsing can give you a quick idea of the number and range of items in different categories. The Browse list is a big help in seeing which unused object number is next when adding a new record. This Browse view is back to the Archives catalog for timetables, reports, plans, and so on, but the photos and objects work the same way. The object ID numbers are in sequence down the leftmost column. You can at least see the object name, which was given by the person who created the record. You can scroll up and down the list and highlight one item at a time. Hitting Return for the highlighted item opens the record for that item. For categories that have many individual items, such as employee timetables, each item has not been cataloged separately because that's cumbersome and time-consuming to do in Past Perfect. Instead, we have spreadsheets where you can see what's available. Often, if you want a timetable for a specific location and date, for example, it's easiest just to find the box on the shelf that has the relevant group of items and look through it. Speaking of finding the actual items, for now, nearly all the archived items are in the Library and Archives room at the northwest end of the Freight House, which is assumed in the Past Perfect Home Location line, orange arrow. If an item is somewhere else, such as on exhibit or out for restoration work, that's noted in the record. The page opened by the Conditions of Access and Use tab, the green arrow, will let you know if something is particularly fragile and so not suitable for display or frequent handling. That's also often noted in the extent and medium or unit of description, the blue arrow. Archive items that fit standard size boxes are on the shelves at the west side of the room. All the boxes are labeled with a title for the type of item, such as SP employee timetables or Amtrak training manuals, and the cataloging higher level numbers. Each individual item that has been cataloged has a small white adhesive label with the catalog number. These are sometimes on the backs of items, such as photos without margins, or on a sleeve or envelope containing the fragile items, such as train orders for special or last runs. They were called flimsies for a reason. A few items, such as oversized timetables, are on the shelves next to, but not inside, the individual boxes. The yellow arrows point to the location named Under Counter Drawers. They are numbered 1 through 10. Many of the framed photos and some of the photo albums are in these drawers. The red arrow points to the location named Vertical File Cabinet. The drawer numbering continues here, 11 through 14. These drawers hold many photo prints in folders. The green arrow points to the location named Printers Drawers. Because these drawers are partitioned into many small spaces, they hold mainly small 3D artifacts, such as switch keys and commemorative pins. The orange arrow points to storage for rolled items, mainly large format maps and plans. Storage for rolled items continues on the opposite side of the room. These bins which pull out are partitioned, with each cell having a specific letter and number location. Often similar plans or multiple copies of plans are rolled together in a cell. An example would be erecting diagrams from a certain class of steam locomotives. The largest rolled sheets are stored in PVC tubes above the pull-out bins. To be safe, use a stepladder to access these. The boxes on top are empty and were put there temporarily. Proper operation of the fire sprinklers requires a minimum clear space below the ceiling. The red arrow points to drawers that hold very large format photo prints and plan drawings that are stored flat. They continue the alphanumeric location identities. Because they were added last, they are drawers Z1 and Z2. The black arrow points to a space where items held for transfer to other historical organizations are often held. The green arrow points to library and archive supplies such as labels and special tape. The drawer at the yellow arrow holds completed donation forms. It also has folders with grouped but not cataloged articles removed from magazines. The folders are labeled for topics such as coastline operations.